For 𝑩𝒂𝒊𝒕 𝒂𝒂𝒕, you may now join the debate.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. Allow me to start by thanking the electoral district that allowed me to sit in this place on this side of the horseshoe. That is 𝑩𝒂𝒊𝒕. Allow me to also congratulate the Secretary with Responsibility for Finance for a splendid first presentation of a budget, and allow me to also congratulate her on not having us there for 4 hours, and therefore probably more important than anything else, also limiting the time that the responder is able to speak. And allow me to also say to our newly minted members of Parliament who happened to be speaking at the same time that our Secretary with Responsibility for Finance was speaking. Tobago West spoke earlier in the day, and then Tobago East spoke later in the evening. I want to go on public record as also congratulating them and thanking them for representing this island in the Parliament of Trinidad and Tobago in a way that would allow us to stand on this side, and as my colleague Secretary James spoke about, having a renewed set of hope that because we actually have a proper representation for Tobago East and West in the Parliament, and we now also have a government that seems to at least respect the Tobago House of Assembly, the potential is great. I would like to take a little bit of time, and I'm actually timing myself so that I will not need more than the 30 minutes, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, to go back a little bit and to talk about one quick thing, because the member, Minority Leader, again spoke about us not having plans and all of that. The Secretary with Responsibility for Finance basically started her presentation reminding us that we were using, or we are building out, a strategic development planning pathway that we will use over the next couple months to create this plan that we will use to develop Tobago over the next 10, 15, 20 years. Now that is important because, again, I want to place on record that the last developmental plans that we had for the island included the Comprehensive Economic Development Plan. The first iteration of it was from 2006 to 2010. The second iteration of that was from 2013 to 2017. And I want to place that specifically on record so that those on the other side who keep talking about us not having a plan recognize that for quite a bit of the time his colleagues were there. They did have a plan. But while I sat on the other side of this horseshoe, I remember at one of these budget debates, I actually went through the CEDP1 and CEDP2 and highlighted the fact that the members on the other side had not actually accomplished more than maybe 20% of what was in those plans anyway. And that is why, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I wanted to take a little bit of time to chat with the people of Tobago about the process that we will be using. Because what we do not want, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, is a repeat of what happened then. We actually want to have a plan that is actually used. And for us to have a plan that is actually used, it means that we need to take our time to develop the plan, and the development process for that plan needs to be one that is grounded in science that actually works. What does that mean? And again, I promise I will be very short. We currently have a framework that includes us having 21 what are known as development agenda priorities, 21 of them. If you think about everything that we would need to do in Tobago to get us to that greatest little island on the planet status, it would fit under these 21 development agenda priorities. But instead of having some random person come in who will then say to us, this is what we think you would do, the Office of the Chief Secretary, the planning unit, and so forth, kind of worked on a framework that would allow all of us who are on the ground, all of us who are experiencing what public service is, all of us who are part of the Tobago House of Assembly, we are the ones who would say, hey, you see this is a problem. This is a problem that would prevent us from getting to greatest little island on the planet status. And therefore, these are the things we need to do to get us from our baseline, which is where the problem is, to greatest little island on the planet status. And that includes, again, thinking about what the problems are, looking at what the policy solutions are, looking at the legislative framework, meaning what are the laws that we may need to put in place, what are the laws we may need to amend, what are the policies we may need to put around the table. And then based on that, developing the plan that says, this is what we will do, this is where we will go. Of course, as I said, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, the aim is to get us to that grand vision of Tobago being the greatest little island on the planet. And I've decided in the 22 minutes that I have left to use 3 specific examples from the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection of how we could do that. Let me go back and highlight the fact that when the Secretary with responsibility for finance called the numbers associated with each of the divisions, and I heard the division that I have responsibility for, Health, Wellness and Social Protection, and she said the $846 million, I clutched my pearls and I said, oh my goodness, I plenty money. And it's like, that's all, we really asked for all of that. But it is important to note that because the division is responsible for the provision or for the policy that leads to the provision of health care, over $571 million of that is to go to the Tobago Regional Health Authority, which is a huge chunk of that money. Now, why is that important? I plug it here because people continually believe that because when you go to the hospital or to the health center, you do not pay you don't have to pull out a card, you don't have to pay, you don't have to pull out your insurance, you don't have to pay for it. People don't recognize that healthcare actually costs a whole lot of money. So even though my division is actually one of those that is taking a large chunk of the budget, I again have to agree with my colleague, Secretary James, when he speaks about us having to figure out that balance. Because we can't keep spending money on the things that does not allow us to bring the kinds of return, the kind of economic development that we will need for us to get to greatest little island on the planet status. And just so that we are aware, of the $145 million that my division has requested for traditional development program Financing, again, about 81 million of that goes to the Tobago Regional Health Authority because of all of the things we need to do. So let's go back to these 21 development agenda priorities. As I said, I will chat about 3 specifically. Priority E speaks to a modern and efficient healthcare system. A modern and efficient healthcare system. So we have to ask ourselves, what is a problem? What do we currently face as a challenge that is preventing us from being a modern and efficient healthcare system? What is that? I get the calls all the time because somebody went to accident and emergency at 8 a.m. and at 8 p.m. they are still in accident and emergency and they are calling me. So that is the problem. What do we need to do? Well, it has several things that we are looking at, several things we've already started, and several things that we will continue to implement going forward. One of those is really a review of what happens at accident and emergency. Who sees you when you come in? When you get to the gate and you're screaming, Lord God and murder, who actually interacts with you? Is that person the best person to interact with you at that point? Or do we need to change the triaging system so that we have a doctor look at you almost immediately to then determine whether you need to go in quickly or whether you can sit and wait a little bit so that we can treat with the others that may be real emergencies? We need to also look at diagnostic tools. And one of the things that is critical is you hear people talking about the fact that we had to wait for the X-ray, or we had to wait for the CT scan, or we had to wait for the MRI. So a big chunk of that, about $20 million of that, Deputy Presiding Officer, will actually be going towards beefing up these diagnostic tools. We already have on island the CT scanner that is being installed as we speak. And the other tools include MRIs and other X-rays and other types of machines that we will need to ensure that as soon as you get to A&E, you are able to be diagnosed quickly so that we know what to do with you. We also have a situation, Madam Presiding Officer, or Deputy Presiding Officer, sir, apologies, where those of you who need to actually be warded, we are now running out of space. We are running out of space because when we went from the old fort, we actually reduced the number of beds in the hospital. So we moved from a hospital with 100 and something beds to a hospital with 100 beds. So we reduced the number of beds. Unfortunately, we have to figure out how to get the bed count back up, taking into consideration what is happening at Roxborough, in addition to what we actually need to happen at Scarborough. And of course, we need to expand what happens at primary care. Because if we get you in the health centers and we get you to be better in the health centers or through the health center system, you will not need to get to the hospital. By the way, the member for Roxborough Argyle, who as normal comes, talks and leaves, spoke about the fact that there were so many people who were educated and were not getting employment. And one of the things we've actually been able to do over the last couple of years is beef up the cadre of medical staff at the Tobago Regional Health Authority. And this is why, for example, it costs over $40 million every month to run the service, to pay them. Over the last couple of years, we've hired at least 10 specialist medical officers, at least 10 registrars, about 40 house officers. These are, vast majority of them are actually Tobagonians who went to medical school and came back and were employed. We hired about 70 registered nurses and about 50 enrolled nursing assistants, 2 speech therapists and other speech and language therapists. and speech and language and art and occupational therapists and pharmacists and all of those people. Again, the vast majority of those are Tobagonians who went to school and came back. Let me also talk very, very quickly about Roxborough Hospital. Because again, the members of the minority continue to talk about what happened in Roxborough and what is happening in Roxborough and that they built Roxborough. Yes, 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 sure. The structure was built, but we are faced with the fact that the structure was not purpose-built, because part of the development that we would need to do to expand the kind of services we need would include actually expanding what happens at Roxborough. Because for some reason we did not think about the fact that if we have doctors and nurses and all of these professionals working in a facility, we would actually need a place for them to go and sit down and eat and actually be a human being when they are not interacting with patients. So we need to treat with that. But yes, the Roxborough Hospital was opened basically as a health center in 2021 because it was only primary care. It was basically moving the health center from out the road into the health center, into the hospital facility. In 2022, though, that is when we started actually having secondary care services there and tertiary care services, because we actually have the dialysis chairs there. By the way, we've been able to complete about 3,000 dialysis sessions in Roxborough since we started providing that service. It is good, but it is not comforting. It is not comforting because we're still running out of chairs. We still don't have enough service, and we still don't have enough service because people are losing their kidney function, and people are losing their kidney function because they are diabetic, and because they are hypertensive, and because they have all of these other diseases that is leading to kidney failure. I would actually like one day to come and report less of these numbers. We have also been able to do additional things. Of course, we all know about the cataract surgeries that have taken place there, and we have over 2,000 cataract surgeries being done over the last couple of years, and the calls keep coming in. So we are thinking about having to do it again this year to allow people to see, to simply allow them to see. So we have the problem. We have to think about how we can actually work towards solving the problem. Sitting with the Tobago Regional Health Authority, we are about to officially launch a strategic plan that was done at the Tobago Regional Health Authority with all of these things in mind, because it was actually the employees, the people on the ground who were a part of it. So when they speak about doing this and that and the other in 2 years, in 5 years, they know that that is what they're doing because they are the ones who put it in the plan. In the 11 minutes that I have, I'll speak about the other 2 areas. H, protecting and caring for the most socially vulnerable in the society. That's the priority. That treats with the Department of Social Protection. The Department of Social Protection is actually one that we just started working on expanding what it does. It actually is a group of people who do so much work, but because of the kind of work they do, it is difficult for us to publicize what they do. It is difficult for us to put up the pictures and to put up the names and so forth because of the kind of work that they do. But we've been able to restructure that department, and one of the things that we are working on is to figure out how to get the services to the people who need the services even faster. So the director is currently working with a team to build out an actual crisis response team, so that it doesn't matter what time of the day or night something happens, weekend or not, there is someone who can respond, and we have the systems in place, including all of the systems that relate to procurement. And my assistant secretary is also showing, because we have these meetings. We actually had a meeting this week where we were there arguing trying to figure out how to ensure that we do not breach any of the procurement rules, but still provide the service and provide it quick. Because somebody who needs food does not need to hear that the procurement people ain't do the PO yet. So we are trying to grapple with these kinds of things so that we follow the rules and so that my goodly member has no other reason to send any document to OPR with my name on it. We are trying to figure out how to do this balance, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, because we need to figure that out. So we have that. But part of what I wanted to highlight was the fact that within our recurrent budget, and I'm probably saying this more for my good friend, the Secretary with responsibility for finance, when we are reducing our recurrent budget so that we can put into DP, our recurrent is where we spend the money for those grants. So we are hoping to get at least about $11 million to be able to provide all of the different kinds of grants that we need to ensure that we protect and care for the most socially vulnerable in the society. And the last one I want to talk about relates to the Department of Public Health, where the priority K speaks to sustainable urban, suburban and livable village communities. And part of that has to do with waste management, for example. I want to say that part of the Division of Health, Wellness and Social Protection, since it was the Division of Health and Social Services when I became a member as, I can't remember what my position was in 2006 or 2007, we had the litter eradication program that was part of the division then. It has taken quite a while, but we have finally gotten to the point after all of those years where we are regularizing those litter eradication program workers. So as of the 1st of July, they will have an increased salary. They will be able to go on holidays and take sick leave and get paternity leave and get maternity leave and all of those things. After all of those years, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, we are finally there. But the next step, because remember we spoke about what we have to look at the problem. The problem is that we still have quite a bit of litter happening. We still have quite a bit of unhealthy waste management practices. So the next step would be to actually have litter wardens on the island. So that is part of the plan for next fiscal, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer. And we are working through the policy and we are working through the legislative requirements because, you know, when we read the law says that a particular minister is responsible for precepting, in essence, the litter wardens. And when I called the former minister back then, the minister said, really, I never did that, you know. So we are now working through. By the way, the current minister said, hey, that's what the law said, no scenes on your list. Again, political will. Yes. Political will. But the last thing I want to speak about, Madam Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, is the fact that Priority C speaks about a digitally driven competitive society and economy. And it is sad that I am standing here at this hour in, June of 2025, and I cannot report that I have moved further in the digitization of social protection because, again, of the lack of political will, or what I may call plain old bad mind, that has caused that specific project to be halted. The good news, Madam Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, is that we actually spoke with the Minister with responsibility for AI, and we have a commitment to continue. We have a commitment to figure out where we were and what needs to happen. And some of the principles that the Chief Secretary spoke about earlier have already started reaching out, saying, hey, we feel we're getting the green light, let's get back to the playing field, let us get back to implementation, so that Tobago would get to the point where you do not necessarily have to come in to apply for the food card or for rental assistance. You can do it on your phone. And that is going to cost us about $4 million or so next fiscal. if we don't get the grant, because there are possibilities of us actually getting some grant funding to do it, and the Tobago Regional Health Authority, we would be able to extend the digitization that is happening there, because my aim, it's not going to happen overnight, my aim is for us to be able to go to the hospitals and to the health centers, and when they are asking for your file, they don't have to literally run and get your paper file. They can pull up a tablet and your medical records will be on a digital platform. So, Mr. Deputy Presiding Officer, I just wanted to say to the people of Tobago, when I listen to my colleagues and when we really sit down and go through all that we've been able to do over the last 3.5 years, I am actually, there are times you feel a little daunted. But when you listen, and moments like today allow us to really listen and reflect on what we've been able to do, I feel good. No, we have not done everything that we've planned. No, we are not at the point where we really wanted to be. But when you think about all of the obstacles that have been placed in our way, when you really think about all of the obstacles that's been placed in our way, colleagues, I want us to give ourselves a tap in the back. Thank you, 3:45. We really need to give ourselves a tap in the back. We really need to say to ourselves, give ourselves a little bit of grace, because we really have done a decent job. And because we have done a decent job, I think the people of Tobago are seeing that we have done a decent job, given all of the obstacles that have been placed in our way. And they will continue to support this Tobago People's Party administration. And they will not behave as if those on the other side who came today and spoke about we will do this and we will do that and we will do the other, as if you were not there for the last 100 million years when you could have done it. They will stoop their teeth when they come to their homes, because they are finally seeing development and they are finally seeing us getting to that grand goal of Tobago being the greatest little island on the planet. And I want to thank Tobagonians in advance for continuing to give us the kind of support so that we can provide the services that you require on this island. I thank you.